Legends, welcome back to the Peak Performance Podcast. And we are here today, I'm very excited, a man who's quickly become an icon at the PPC, Disco Dave Heyneman. How are you, great man?
I'm good, mate. Thanks so much for having me. It's a privilege, right? Like there's some, like you were saying before, there's some big names on this podcast. So I'm humbled.
Mate,
Thanks,
you absolutely deserve to be alongside those. I guess quickly, we're not going to dive too deeply into it because we want to get into some specific scenarios that you and I have worked with together. But, we were fortunate that when we were opening PEAQ 2.0, there were a few practitioners that were interested in getting involved. For us, it was an absolute no-brainer to have you as our in-house physio. And let me just say, mate, you've done an unbelievable job. I'm very grateful that I get to come and hang out with you at work each day. So thank you for everything you've done. And congratulations on your growth over this time now as well. Obviously, having young Declan working underneath you too. You've achieved some huge things, mate. How's it been becoming an icon in the facility so quickly?
I think icon is polite, but mate, I'll take it. Thank you. And the name Disco has stuck. That is absolutely stuck. So Zeke, I reckon Zeke is probably to blame for that. But no, that was fantastic. I've really enjoyed it at the time here. It's been 2 years roughly almost. So yeah, 2 years has been fantastic. I think a lot of people ask, how is it to have a clinic inside a facility like this? And my general answer is that it's effectively a playground for a sports physio, right? Or any type of physio where you have in your head, you can dream up a way of treating people or what you want to do. But having it actually in the four walls here is really amazing, and it's unrestricting in terms of what you can do and the results that you can get. So yeah, it's epic. And I think when we spoke a few years back now, it's really it's interesting, right? Because my dream historically to have my physio clinic look like is actually really, really similar, maybe minus the big basketball court, but is really similar to what it is here. So whether it's fate, whether it's hard work and a bit of luck and some good timing, it's wild. It's
Love
so
it.
good. So.
And mate, I do think everything happens for a reason. I'm a big in that sort of mindset and manifestation space. But we're going to sort of accelerate along the line. There's so many things we could talk about. I'm sure we'll probably get you back on. But what I thought would be most valuable for our listeners today would be talk about the experience. And honestly, probably one of the absolute highlights of this year for me. Again, if we talk about when we first started, communicating, I know that from the outset you had a really clear goal of wanting to go to the Olympics, and that's something that we continue to strive for, to this point in time. And very fortunately, again, maybe we go back to that. Everything happens for a reason. Yeah. I've been facilitating Lacrosse Australia for a while. There's some opportunities, pop up to volunteer, and what I want to say. Again, not to blow too much wind up your ass, is you absolutely deserve every opportunity that you've received along the way, because I've seen how much time and effort you have volunteered to the lacrosse community, which we're really, really grateful for. But all that sort of culminated in us going together to China earlier this year to the World Games. So maybe let's... if you want to talk to me about some of those sort of volunteer experiences, and
for sure.
It hasn't been a completely smooth journey, which we're happy to be transparent about. There's nothing that's off the table, because the experience you had it's hard, because it's unfortunately a common experience in the industry is being cutthroat, people willing to undercut each other to try to get opportunities and those sorts of things. But talk to us through that, because I think that might help some practitioners who are trying to get their foot in the door initially.
Yeah, for sure. So you're right. Like Olympics is really what drove me to even become a physio. This is talking like sort of 13, 14 years old. And so that's been like a long burning drive. But in terms of sport and like our relationship through sport, but maybe more specifically lacrosse, there's lots of ups and downs. Like sport is not sport's something that you love, and it's you normally develop that love really early. But the desire, I was saying to people that the desire that I have to operate as a sports physio is the same desire and competitive edge that they have as to winning games. It's really like the same driving pattern. And so I thought moving back to a couple of years ago, my desire to try to break into more of that elite sport. I've done lots of different sports, and they've been good level up to sort of like state national level sort of thing, but hadn't really sort of broken into that international realm. And so the timing, I suppose, again, if you like, lots of hard work and then a little bit of timing. Us going to China was wild for the World Games, which was effectively like a mini Olympics, right?
Now, I remember, and what people need to understand, that there's been a huge transitional phase in lacrosse Australia. Obviously, we're talking about this sort of specific scenario and context. Yeah. We've gone from essentially a sport in which athletes have 10 to 20 grand out of pocket per year to try to compete, have their gear, head overseas. It's completely self-funded. Yeah. To all of a sudden getting a bunch of funding from the Australian Olympic Committee. We go straight into sort of like a mid-range categorisation or classification, which is relatively unusual for new sports. They usually go in as a low categorisation. So lots and lots of change happening. There's been lots of turmoil, with the board sort of essentially being fully refreshed. Lots of new people and new positions, including myself. I had maybe almost a 12-month period where I had no idea what was happening with my contract and eventually getting it locked in. I remember that there'd been some communication back and forth. I'd sort of alluded to the fact that there might be an opportunity to come to China. There's lots of hearsay, whispering. Some people, had maybe alluded something to you. Tell me, how many days did you have notice before you actually got on a plane to head to China to say you are officially the physio for this squad?
Yeah, it was something like 6.5.
6.
So it was like, technically I got told on the 7th day. Well, I got asked on the 7th day.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really even a question. It was just like, absolutely. Let's do this, right? So I think I was on the way home from Norwood in the clinic, got a phone call, and sort of I had that chat, right? And then it was pretty much 7 days. That was the 7th day, like minus 7 days to fly out. And so, jumped back off that phone call, rang. I think I rang my wife first because I was like floating, like the car.
Shout out to Jazzy. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jazz.
Yeah.
Thanks to all our beautiful wives that look after the families.
Jazz is the real MVP with dealing with keeping the household in check while I'm not there. And it was like, get off that phone call, ring my medical rep, and I'm like, right, I need you in the clinic tomorrow morning because we've got nothing, like literally nothing, right? So how it happens is for like maybe some physios or people that want to work in that space is that it was a challenging environment for everyone because the organisation is trying to shift from effectively like a national organisation to an international one. It's really challenging for them to do that. But also for the people that have been involved, and I was involved only minutely, and I was trying to develop and help grow that sports physio space. There's been some other great practitioners prior to me being involved, and they're still involved. But you go from this sort of no funding to centrally funded. And when that happens is when people like myself who are trying to put their hand up to help, you effectively got tapped on the shoulder and said, hey, like, thanks very much for volunteering, but no thanks anymore. Because it gets centrally funded. So the institutes take over, everyone sort of gets, physio-wise, they get treatment through places like SASI, et cetera, if they get scholarships, for example. So that was like, sometimes you have to check your ego, right? Because you're like, well, I really wanted to be involved, but and it was great while I was, and that's just how it is. And that's like the cutthroat, not just for players and coaches, but it's also cutthroat for allied health medical staff, because when things change like that, that's like you're just at the mercy of the system, right, of the cogs. But funnily enough, 7 days out across Australia, weren't taking their other physio for whatever reason, and luckily enough, and again, lucky, hard work, whatever, through relationships, they get me in bars and I just sort of drop everything and we jump on a plane.
So you sort of almost briefly mentioned it there, but what do you have to organise? Because, people who aren't in your realm probably think, oh, yeah, he just jumps on a plane and he can go, give people a rub on a table, he'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, what are you organising between day -7 and day 0 of getting on that plane?
Yeah, so the short answer is everything, and that doesn't give you a lot of information. So because in a situation like that, if you're not taking a doc, you are trying your absolute best to bridge the gap between what you're allowed to do medico-legally and then there's a gap, right? So I was on the phone to 2 really well-respected sports docs and sports physicians in Adelaide asking them, hey, look, this is a situation, what medico-legally could you advise me to take? So things like simple things, like a gamut of cough, cold, flu type over-the-counter medications, things like other over-the-counter medications, but also things that you're just discussing with those medical reps around like what happens when X, Y, and Z happens. Are you happy if I can liaise with you whilst I'm away, et cetera, et cetera. So shout out to both Dr. James Illick from Wakefield and Dr. Karthik Badranath from Spark. Those 2 guys I've got really, really close relationships with. And I actually used both of them while I was away in 2 pretty interesting situations. And so having the support network from medical staff who are extremely experienced and well-versed in travel medicine, in sports medicine is so important. The physio side of it is everything, right? So you try to drum up every imagined injury that you can think of, making sure that you've got the simple things for tape prep and physical athletic preparation, but also the first aid supplies when things will go wrong, because they always do. And then you're trying to work out, all right, well, how much do I need to take? What do you think is going to happen over there? What are the weather conditions going to be like? What type of country are we going to? Like, do they speak the language? What's the medical system like? What happens when someone breaks their ankle? What happens if someone has a head trauma and we need to get them to a hospital, and what does that look like? So you're trying to play all of those scenarios out. A lot of those scenarios but when you have other medical professionals that you can go, hey, what's your experience here? Or what do you think in this particular situation? Or what would you do for this case? Having that network is super important.
Yeah, love it. We're going to fast forward a week there and we jump on the plane and, there's a really special moment to be able to don the green and gold alongside you, mate, and love jumping on. But I remember on our flight to Hong Kong having a realisation like, oh, my God, I think I'm the team manager. And it sort of like was and look, I'd been on a number of other roles, in the WNBL before where I had sort of essentially jumped in and done those. A lot of lowly paid roles or lowly resource organisations that require you to sort of spread yourself out across a number of roles in order to be as efficient as possible with resources. So I remember, mapping out, schedules with you for the coming days and all those sorts of things. We get into Hong Kong and you sort of talked about weather conditions. What's your sort of memory of our ability to be able to train through that sort of preparation week leading into competition?
Yeah, I think resilience was the overarching word to describe what it took to go away. I think the first day I remember walking with my physio bag and Gav took my physio kit, thank goodness. So he was dragging that along and I was sort of had my physio bag, and I remember the first training drill. It was like 34 degrees, which doesn't seem too hot, but the humidity was nuts. And I remember walking actually to go and get a whole like a carton, a box of water for the girls. We ran out literally halfway through training, and it was raining, but there was no clouds in the sky. So it was like seriously humid. I was sort of looking up going, is someone tipping water out of a high rise? And it's just like sort of covering me, and it wasn't. It was just humidity, right? So first training, one of the girls literally tore the bottom of her foot off because of the humidity and the sweat. And so that was like the first realization of, right, like we're going to tear feet up on this trip. And that's exactly what happened. We just tore skin off feet for 2 weeks straight. And so that was a really big shift. It wasn't a big shift, I suppose, but it was definitely something that we had to manage, making sure that the girls were getting dry feet, footwear, socks, etc., etc. So luckily, I brought stuff to handle that, right? And then the rest of that week was just like torrential downpour. Right? Remember, it was like 1.5 inches. The girls were training like literally in 1.5 inches of water, like underwater. So, and it didn't matter whether you were under a tent or out in the rain, you were either wet from sweat or the rain. So, yeah, it was interesting times. And you just sort of, everyone's in the same boat. You just sort of pivot and shift and make the best of what you can.
It was almost on a daily basis that we would have training or our game stopped because of lightning. You know, we'd have to stop and start. I think I did about 75 warm-ups in the course of a week. But I've got this really special memory of we had a sort of a trial game against the Hong Kong national team and it stopped for a lightning delay. And all the girls and staff had run under cover. It's pouring down, and I don't know what sort of convinced us to do it, but you and me just picked up a stick and we're sitting in the middle of the field and we're just like in Hong Kong, absolutely soaked through to the skin. We've got no idea what we're doing with the lacrosse stick.
I think it was
that was fun.
We felt like we needed to upskill, right? Like we felt completely, well, I don't know about you, I felt completely inferior. Like these athletes are whipping these balls around. They're absolute animals. They're so tough, these girls, and so athletic. And I think we're like, hey, like we've got 20 minutes here maybe of probably not the smartest move, I suppose, standing out in the middle of a massive black thunderstorm with lightning all around the city. But you take your chances, I suppose. But it was crazy, man. And coming back to your role, like many hats, mate. Hats off to you, because like for those people that don't know, I think you were team manager, S&C, recovery coach, you were pseudo bus driver, you did
clothes washer,
mate, clothes washer. There was literally nothing that you couldn't do, and the effortlessness of how it was perceived of you switching roles, I think that in itself is like the true realization of professionalism in terms of being a master at your role to the point where you can take on so many others because you just know it inside out. So
I really appreciate that.
That was unreal to watch.
But again, I couldn't have done it without you. And I think I actually did a LinkedIn post, sitting there, and there's probably people at home, certainly Jamie, I'm sure she probably thought, that bastard's just on a holiday. Yeah. But there we are sitting there, it's like 10:30 at night, and we're sitting in a crowded laundry waiting for, 12 sweaty lacrosse kits that are just sort of swirling around and just never drying, and thinking, actually, there's no place I'd rather be. It was actually, it was pretty fun, and to have that banter with you and to lean on each other was amazing.
Both on laptops, and it was hot, sweaty, dryers going everywhere, and we're both answering emails and trying to sort of run businesses back home. Whilst we wash a bunch of girls, sweaty clothes, which was, and I remember you taking that photo and going, mate, this is it. This is the pinnacle.
This is high performance.
We've made it, right?
Now I remember the first time that Grumpy Dave again, rears his head every now and again. I love Grumpy Dave. I think Grumpy Dave is always validated in his appearance, and that was, I think the first time was when actually the girls got a bit experimental. So we'd been eating primarily in our hotel. We thought it was super safe. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're nourishing your body well, and you're in a country where maybe hygiene standards aren't the same, or maybe there's different bugs that we're not used to from a Western perspective. The girls got a bit creative or a bit experimental with their eating, and there's a bit of sickness that went through the group. Talk to us about sort of how you found out about that and your response and how you got on top of it quickly.
So one of the chats that I had with Dr. James Elliott before I went was nutrition, right? So he runs a travel clinic, and the advice from him was, do not eat anything outside of the norm that you can't identify. And so when we got into the hotel, granted it was a hotel, the girls just went ham on the buffet. And I'm sitting there with you eating. We were having eggs and chicken and rice, right? I think we ate eggs, chicken, and rice 3 meals a day for 2 weeks.
7 days a week.
Right, which was interesting. And I sort of didn't know the girls very well. Obviously, I'd known them for sort of 12 hours, and I didn't really want to, like, Grumpy Dave didn't need to come out, right? And so I let it go. And then, we were on the bus. I think it was on the bus in Chengdu, and we'd been sort of around the place for a little while. And, there was about 4 or 5 girls that come up to me in the morning going, "Hey, do you have any gastro stuff?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do. Why?" For obvious, right? I don't know why you want to, but like what's happening here? There was a bit of a pattern. And so, Grumpy Dave came out on the bus on the way home because they were all confined. They couldn't run anywhere. And they all got a little talking to. And but that's right. It was sort of, I thought it was warranted. I think they appreciated it.
You saved that campaign, I think,
but,
mate.
The gist of it was, we are not here to experiment with fancy Chinese food. You are to eat boring, nutritious food, and we are here to win a gold medal.
Yeah.
And that is the purpose of us being here. I think that was the gist of Grumpy Dave, and then I tried to snap back out of it.
I love it.
But I think the look on a couple of the girls' faces, especially the young ones,
Yeah.
The older ones knew it was coming, I think.
Yeah.
Pre-warned a couple of them, but look on some of their faces.
I think it just shows you care. You know,
They check themselves.
There was no obligation for you to do that and go above and beyond. You know, again, if you think about the role of a physio, most people just think about, strapping and identifying injury and all those sorts of things. But then now you're making sure, like, you're almost like a parent to them as well.
Yeah.
So
I think, like, both of us having that dual role of you're as much as a parent as you are a high performance manager, as you are a sports physio, a S&C coach, or whatever it is. So when you have those sorts of things creep in, you really need to work within your skill set, but also understand other skill sets and work within your comfort zone there, and try to be respectful. Because when you say, for example, that chat didn't happen, and then we have an outbreak, and then we have like 6 girls locked in their bedroom on the toilet, that wouldn't be super great. So.
Absolutely. So we've covered off the training camp. We've transitioned. I think that was a real turning point for me in the trip, was actually heading to Chengdu. Obviously, things get a little bit more serious because now we're getting into competition. But if I can be completely transparent here, I felt the Hong Kong experience was very authentic. Very, there's lots of sights and sounds and smells and hustle and bustle and culture, and
for sure.
you're right in it. And then you travel to Chengdu, and honestly, I felt that was quite an orchestrated experience. You get off of the flight. There is a person every 4 meters essentially guiding you where to go. It seemed like an additional level of surveillance.
100%.
Then we'd drive for an hour at a time without seeing a soul on the street. So that was really interesting for me. I want to quickly touch base on, again, just some of the different scenarios that pop up. I don't remember if you remember coming through the airport. It's pretty late at night. We've sort of got in there and we're walking through. You go through multiple security checks. You scan your thumb here, your passport here. I remember this man jumping out of a box and pointing at one of our athletes and ripping her into sort of like this medical room or this examination room. And obviously there's a language barrier there. They've shoved a thermometer underneath her armpit and then like headed away, and we're like, oh my God, what is happening? Yeah. There was also some like visa and passport questions around this one specific athlete, which we thought was the reason. Turns out that our temperatures were being taken all the way through, and she was a little bit warm, and thankfully through like a phone at the end, we managed to sort of work your way through. But do you have any sort of specific memories of or initial feelings of when you got into Chengdu as opposed to Hong Kong?
Yeah, for sure, mate. I would say the same thing, right? Like, I think, Hong Kong, pretty normal, pretty cultural and great. I found Chengdu or China, like mainland China, probably Big Brother-esque. It was a bit unsettling. And I found, when you're driving for an hour a highway, a dead straight highway, and you can't sort of see past the highway because of these manicured sort of mountains or hills on either side. All looks beautiful and looks pristine and lovely and brand new, but it is unsettling because there's no other cars on the road, and so you're like, right, okay, where are we going here? And then the athlete village, same thing, no locals, everything's orchestrated, and that was pretty much our experience for 7 days, right? Like, we didn't really. I specifically didn't see the real China. I have no idea what China is like, and so.
In saying that, though, you got to see a little bit more of China than I did, which I'm excited to dive into quickly. We had 2 instances where we had some injury concerns with athletes, one in Hong Kong and then one in Chengdu, which I think are great stories. I was probably back at the hotel washing some clothes or something like that. Tell me about each of those, probably more like your experiences to and in and then back from the hospitals at those points in time.
Yeah, sure. So one incident in the training camp, we had an athlete we just wanted to check an ACL basically. And so that was sort of quite well orchestrated. We used Hong Kong Lacrosse Club to help out with their medical officer. A little bit stressful just from the fact that we got sent the completely opposite direction in the Uber. And then so we thought we were going to miss the scan and everything else. And then just dealing with different medical systems, language barriers, but also what we are used to in Australia is so far advanced on what the experiences that we had in sort of even Hong Kong and definitely China, which is sort of just so lucky that we've got what we have here. So again, sort of scan this girl's knee in Hong Kong, looking at old films rather than on the computer and whatnot. So I'm sort of looking at films literally through a light, which is all sort of fine. Again, lent on the medical professionals back home, which is fantastic to have that. And then it was relatively seamless, a little bit stressful, but more stressful probably for the athlete. And then we go through the normal thing, like you and I jump in a cab with the athlete. We go and put her through a big battery of testing because the scan was okay. And then happy days, right? So she gets through the rest of the 10 days, plays, contributes massively, and that's a great story. And then I suppose the experience in China, similar sort of concept in terms of player has a bit of a mechanism of a knee injury on the field, comes off, can't weight bear. And so what ends up happening is the medical officer in the games on the field organises an ambulance for us to take us to Chengdu Hospital, the larger hospital there. And that's probably where the story starts, right? So we're sort of, if you could imagine an ambulance that was probably built in the 70s with no seat belts and no way of actually locking the bed into the floor of the ambulance. And so we've got myself, the athlete, on the bed. We've got an interpreter, another person that I've got no idea what they're doing.
Just to chop in there as well,
Yeah.
I remember seeing you just before you left, like I was with the main group, and there were about 38 people, random people just like, so crowding. The back doors of the van were open.
Yeah.
The poor athletes laying in the bed.
Photos,
you're fighting people off. There's like media. I've never seen anything like it. It was
Stop
unbelievable
filming,
fanfare.
Stop filming this poor girl who's...
Grumpy Dave came back out.
Grumpy, Grumpy Dave was out that
was an
day.
experience, yeah.
He got a workout for sure. So,
Yes.
no, I was the first role for me that day was bodyguard.
Yes.
I was security guard first. I was probably psychologist for the athlete second. Physio came down the list at somewhere, popped in there here and there. But yeah, mate, it was insane, right? I think any time one of the Aussies or one of the Western countries did something, there was just so much attention, right? And so, and as well, I think the Chinese really wanted to have a seamless experience for everyone there. And so there was just copious amounts of staff to do nothing. And so I think when there's an ambulance involved, there was 35 people standing there. no idea what they're doing apart from filming. And so, yeah, it was interesting. So we're sort of in this ambulance going way too fast around way too many tight corners. And so, yeah, there was some interesting conversations. I won't repeat what I may or may not have said in the ambulance, but after I'd finished discussing with them the consequences of us crashing the ambulance, I think they understood there was no interpretation needed, and they understood that Grumpy Dave was out. And so they peeled back the speed a little bit, and we rolled into the ambulance, rolled into the hospital, which again was a whole nother world, right? Like this was real China, and it was pretty interesting, right? It was pretty unsettling. It wasn't very nice to be in there. There was like some trauma. There was some big trauma that was happening as well in there. So there was some locals that, I don't know if someone had passed away or whatever, but there was some people there really traumatized with mud all over them and stuff. And there was some stuff happening there, right? So we ended up, again, scanning this girl. A security guard in me sort of came out because it didn't feel very safe. The athlete that I had there was a bit of an enigma. She was tanned with blonde hair, and so that's quite a standout in China. And so there was people taking photos of her weirdly, and there was a lot of a lot of discomfort, right? And so we just wanted to get in, get the scan, and then sort of get back out of there. And then, interestingly, we could probably talk about this for hours, right? But on the way back, we sort of waited and we jumped in this taxi. And luckily, I think the interpreter and her offsider came with us. And so we're full taxi on the way back. And I think we were sort of just happy that we were heading back to the hotel. And I at least thought, thank God, right, that's over. So we've done the scan. Again, I was on the phone to one of the docs. I had a disagreement with the head orthopedic surgeon at the hospital. We sort of thought that the scans were saying two different things. So rang the docs and we got through all of that, which is great. We're sort of happy with where we were at, I suppose. And so, yeah, on the way back, we're sort of going through parts of Chengdu, and again, seeing the real China wasn't overly like that city, or that part of that city at least, which is all we saw. It wasn't overly wasn't amazing, right? And so anyway, I'm turning around, talking to this athlete, and I sort of, the car starts shaking, right? And I turn back around, and I don't know how this happened, but we were in the city, and then we just weren't in the city. We were literally on this four-wheel drive track, that genuinely we should have actually had a four-wheel drive. It wasn't a dirt road, it was an actual off-road track. And there's 10-foot reeds up either side of the road. There's rubbish everywhere, and it was literally going back I don't know, 80 years. There was just nothing. It was proper village and so I've gone, no way. It's not exactly what I said, but I turned around and said to the interpreter, nah, where's the road gone? Where's the highway? Where's the city gone? And, oh, no, it's okay. We're going a different way home. And I said, no way. We are not going a different way home.
Rumour has it the car was bottoming out.
Mate, it was probably my fault. The suspension wasn't taking my weight in the front seat. But yeah, we were in this 80s Corolla, and this taxi driver, he was just taking one. This car was getting flogged. But the bash plates underneath, you could feel the rocks and whatever else scrape down the bottom of this car. And this was it, right? Oh no, it's fine. This is the way out. And I sort of, the first thing that goes through my head is right, what do I now need to prepare for what is about to happen? Which might sound crazy. It's why would you freak out like that? Don't worry about it. But I think when you're in that situation and you're already so heightened in terms of what's happening around you, you don't really feel that safe. I wasn't, again, Grumpy Dave was out. It was just get us back to the highway. And then it did. Like, we went through a few turns and had no idea where we were. I was thinking, like, this is it. We're going to be ended up. I don't have any money, but you can take my wallet if you want, sort of thing.
You'll be on a Netflix show.
100%, right? Some sort of like live stream back home. And then all of a sudden we get back on the highway. And so what was weird as well is that where the athlete village was, the highway just stopped. I don't know if you were aware of that or not.
No.
So when we turned off of the highway to the athlete village road, if you actually kept going another 200 metres, that highway stopped in midair over a bridge. It just didn't go anywhere. And then it was just forest. It was just like scrubland and forest. But the road just stopped. And then there would have been a 50-foot drop off.
Wow.
So it was that sort of like, what are we doing? Why? Like, where are we sort of stuff?
Yeah.
So, me and this athlete at the end, we just got back and we were like, right, I'd had enough by then. I'd had enough of hospitals and that sort of stuff. She definitely had enough, and we're just lucky. We're glad to eat rice and eggs again.
I was happy to see that. Yeah. Although you looked a little bit broken.
Yeah,
we were happy to see it. I'm cognizant of time, so we're gonna fast forward straight through to that feeling. We played in the bronze medal match. Yeah. We had the opportunity to go into the gold, but unfortunately went down to Canada. We played in the bronze medal match. We win in overtime, and there's one of my favourite photos of all time is you and me, just that elation jumping on top of each other. You've picked me up as if I'm a small child. It was like the Lion King, almost recreated. Can you remember that feeling and sort of where does that sit in the context of your sort of, your sporting or professional accolades?
Mate, that was it, right? Like that was that moment, or that trip in general, was enough for me to go, all of it was worth it. Like 9 years of uni, 10 years of physio, countless hours of study, sleepless nights, stress, all the rest of it. But those 2 weeks, the good and the bad, were all worth it. That was it was everything and more, which sounds like super cliche, but everything and more that I was wanting and hoping for out of an international trip, the highs and the lows. But that last game, that was something.
Yeah.
That was wild. So
amazing.
The realisation of, like, during that game, the realisation of this is so tight. And at parts of that game, I don't know about you, but I thought, we've let it slip here. Like this is we haven't converted, and they've the other teams run off with a conversion after that. I was like, this is it. But the girls, they are tough. Like, they are some incredible humans and some incredible athletes. And watching them come together and turn on that game and come away from behind, it was 3 goals down or something like that in the last, right? Come down and turn that around was absolutely unreal. And the feeling of overwhelming success and that competitive realisation that we'd got it done. Mate, that was wild. And to have you there, this is a full-blown bromance podcast, right? But that was exceptional to share that with you, and we were just levitating, I think, along with all the coaches and the players. It was incredible.
I remember getting a message from Jamie saying, "I just saw you cry on TV." I was bawling my eyes out, but mate, the feeling is absolutely mutual. I just want to thank you for your time. It's been absolutely wonderful to reminisce about that. I can't wait to circle back around and get you back on the podcast to talk many other high performance aspects of your career. But thank you for all that you did for that campaign, all that you do for our community. And probably something that people don't know as well is to finish off with is to be transparent. When maybe I do get run down sometimes, whether I've smashed myself with coffee or haven't slept enough or I'm a little bit stressed, I do get quite reactive skin. And during that, trip, I had a pretty bad breakout. I was not in a good place. I was really uncomfortable, and I was trying my hardest to hide that, because for me, always blending into the background and not being a distraction to our end goal. But I can't thank you enough. You highlighted it and addressed it, and when you got some special gear for me to get me all sorted out, mate. Thank you so much for
pleasure,
being
mate.
so caring, and I couldn't have gone through that without you. So we appreciate it, mate.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on, and mate, let's onwards and upwards. It would take over the world, eh?
Let's hopefully do it again in 28.
Let's do it.